So stupid, said Net as she yanked back her covers and plopped down on her bed. She sat on the bed for a while trying to figure out why she was so angry. She loved her mother and wanted her to be happy. And if being with the coach was what her mother wanted, she was okay with that. She liked the coach, and she knew the crush she had on him was in the past, even though she was disturbed to find out her sister knew. But then she and her sister often knew things about each other that no one else knew about, even without telling each other. They just knew, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was, why was she so disturbed about her mother and the coach? Why? Net, even if mom's heart is pulled in a million directions, she is still going to love you the same, if not more, than she always has. No one and nothing will ever take our place with mom, said Vet in a quiet voice that completely took Net by surprise. What? You don't know why you're worried about mom and the coach. Well, there's no need to worry. Mom is always going to love us and take out time for us. Always. So stop worrying and just be happy for her. She deserves to have someone nice, and I think the coach will be perfect for her. Knowing her sister had hit the nail on the proverbial head and not wanting her to know she was right, she remained quiet and then slowly reached to turn out her light and lay down without a word. Knowing her sister would never admit that she was right, but not wanting the night to end with a wall between them, Vet reached for a common thread that would at least open the door of communication between her and her sister. I see that Danny knew better than to show her face in church tonight. Yeah, that heifer knows she better not ever show her face there ever again. Tramp. Night, night. And with that, she finally reached over and turned out her light and drifted into a sleep filled with visions of her beating the crap out of Danny. After the kids were settled in for the night, Denise sat at her vanity table in her room and just looked at her reflection in the mirror, going over the events of the night. Did she really get asked out by William Banyan? Did she really say yes? Was she really getting back into the dating scene after all these years? Had her heart really recovered from the death of her husband enough to have more than a friendly relationship with another man? All these thoughts were swirling around in her head as she shook her head from side to side in total disbelief that this was really happening. Are you serious? She asked herself. You aren't really going to do this, are you? She abruptly stood up and began pacing the room, trying to sort out the jumble of emotions that were threatening to take her into a total wreck. Okay, let's look at this thing rationally. You didn't go to him. He came to you, right? Right. It's not like you flirted with him and tried to entice him, right? Right. Okay, we're 2 for 2. Good. He is a Christian. He's not married. He has no baby mama drama. He's good looking. He has a job. The kids know him and like him, and he really seems to be genuinely interested in you, right? Right. So why are you so nervous? Is it because he's white? Okay, let's look at that seriously. Picture you and him walking down the street together, eating in a restaurant together, sitting in the movies together, sitting in church together, eating here with the kids together. Does that bother you at all? No, it doesn't. Good. She answered this last question with a sigh of relief and sat back down at her vanity, looking deep into her brown eyes. So why are you so anxious? You gave all the right answers. Why are you having a mini heart attack? Because this is just not me. That's why. I had no intention on ever dating again. This is scary and so sudden. And then it hit her like a ton of bricks. What if he dates her and then decides that he doesn't really like her and stops wanting to see her? She did not want to put herself through that kind of pain and rejection. He only saw her occasionally and thought he wanted to get to know her. What if, after spending some time with her, he decided she was too bossy, or too independent, or too outspoken, or too anything? Are you really ready to go through this at this stage in your life? She asked herself. This could turn out to be the biggest mistake of your life, opening up yourself to this kind of pain and then have to endure it in front of the kids. Then, with a heavy sigh, she abruptly got up from the vanity and began getting undressed. Enough of this. Take your shower, brush your teeth, wrap your hair, and go to bed, Miss Jones. If you have concerns about this thing, pray about it and leave it in God's hands. After all, what do you tell everyone else? If you're going to pray about it, don't worry. But if you're going to worry about it, then don't pray about it. And personally, I choose to pray about it. So that's it for tonight. Worry time is over. Pray time is here. And then it's off to bed I go. And 30 minutes later, Denise Jones was fast asleep. Thursday morning was quieter than usual at the Jones house since 2 less people were fighting over the bathroom. The girls all seemed to be in a quiet mood as they prepared for school, each casting looks at Denise, who seemed to be in a particularly jovial mood this morning. After eating a light breakfast, she stood waiting with heads bowed for Denise to pray her morning prayer, but the absence of Matt and Jay made Denise summon them with a note of exasperation in her voice. Matt, Jay, just because you aren't going to school doesn't mean you are excused from morning prayer. Front and center, she yelled in the direction of the boys' room. Instantly, the door opened and out rushed Matt with an apologetic look on his face. Jay followed a few minutes later, sulking as usual. They all stood with bowed heads as Denise interceded to God on all of their behalf. All right, ladies, it has been a very interesting week, and I don't have to tell you that I don't want any more drama. Am I making myself clear? She asked as the twins kissed her on the cheek before heading out of the door. No, Mom, they both echoed and were gone. See you later, sweetie. Have a good day and watch your sister, she said to Mimi after giving her a big hug and a kiss on the forehead. Yes, Auntie, she answered with a smile while reaching for her sister's hand. And you have an especially good day, my little ray of sunshine, with your pretty smile, okay? She said to a beaming Chrissy. Yes, Auntie, she answered happily as she took her sister's hand, and they walked out the door and headed to school. Denise stood in the door for a few minutes as the girls all disappeared from sight. She looked around the block and was glad to see that none of the neighbors were paying her any attention. She preferred to be invisible and hoped it would stay that way. As she turned to walk into the house, she stopped when a car traveling rather fast down her block caught her attention. Why was that car traveling so fast when school kids were crossing streets? And was it just her imagination, or did that car and driver seem kind of familiar? She was sure, but she could almost swear it was Gavin. But what was he doing riding down her block this time of morning when he lived clear across town? She continued to look after the car that turned left at the corner and decided it must be her imagination. And since her girls had turned right, she decided to dismiss it as of no importance and went back inside her house. After cleaning the dishes, she called the boys from their room and gave them each a list of chores they were to perform and assignments they had to complete by the time she returned home. Jay, I know you're expecting a big speech so you can perform your little acts of what it is you do, but not today. I am not in the mood for your nonsense today, and I strongly suggest you just do what I say and spare yourself the drama, she said as she picked up her pocketbook and car keys and headed towards the door. She fully had no intention to respond to her nephew's act of insolence, but when he sucked his teeth and muttered a sullen whatever under his breath, even she was surprised at how fast she had dropped her bag, was on top of him, and had grabbed the front of his pajamas before he knew it. Let me tell you something, little boy. You don't want to mess with me this morning, okay? I have been more than patient with you, and I have given you more than enough time to get your little self together. And if you so much as breathe hard again this morning, you will see the side of me, the side that you will never forget. Am I making myself clear? Yes, Auntie. Good. Now go and do what I told you to do now. Visibly shaken, Jay turned and walked quickly from the room before anyone could see the tears that threatened to spill from his eyes. He had never seen that look in his aunt's eyes before, and he knew she meant business, and his mind told him not to push her, not today. But as he started the chores she had chosen for him to do, a smug look came over his face, because last night he had decided he was going to run away and never have to deal with these people again, ever. He had planned it all out, and she was going to be sorry she had ever yelled at him. In 1 week, he was going to leave this house for school, and she was never going to find him. Take that, miss. I am making myself clear. Denise watched as Jay walked away and had a moment of regret for losing her temper, but immediately squashed the feeling knowing he needed her to be firm with him. It would make him a better person in the long run, she thought, as she turned to her son and just stood looking at him. Mom, I'm sorry I messed up yesterday, and I promise you I'll make it up to you. I promise. Matt, I'm not happy about yesterday, but it was yesterday. So let's just learn from it and let it be in the past, okay? Okay, good. I don't want to be late. I have some things I need to take care of today. Jay, I know he can be a handful, but I don't think you're going to have any problems with him today. Don't worry, Mom. Have a good day. We'll be fine. Denise hugged her son and, after saying another quick prayer, headed out the door to handle her errands. She forced herself not to look around to see if her neighbors were looking at her, still smarting from the extra attention they had received yesterday. Instead, she just walked straight to her car and was soon pulling out of the driveway and headed towards town. If she had taken the time to look around at her neighbors, she would have noticed the maroon station wagon that was again sitting a few doors down from her house, and the lone passenger sitting with the camera pointing in her direction. Mimi, can I ask you a question? What? Do you think Aunt Nisi and the coach are going to get married? What? Did you see how happy she was last night when he asked her to go out with him? Yeah, so? Well, what if they start being girlfriend and boyfriend, and then he asks her to marry him? So, what if he does? Well, what is going to happen to us then? What do you mean what's going to happen to us? Nothing is going to happen to us. But what if the coach says he only wants Aunt Nisi's kids and not us? Look, Chris, Aunt Nisi adopted us, so that means we are her kids now. So if anybody wants her, they have to take all of her kids, and that means us too. Yeah, but what if they say we eat too much, or that Jay is too bad, or... Stop it, Chris. Look, Aunt Nisi loves us, and she has been good to us. Has she ever treated you like bad, or been mean to you, or said anything to make you feel like she didn't want you with her? No. Then stop making a problem where there isn't one. Aunt Nisi loves us, and that's that. Are you sure, Mimi? I'm sure. Okay. Any more questions? No more questions. Good. Now let's hurry up, because I have a test this morning and I want to be a little early so I can study some more. You're going to do great on your test. Thanks, little girl. Mommy used to call me little girl. I know. And then Mimi gave her sister's hand a squeeze, and looking at her upturned face into eyes that were searching for any sign that she was lying, she flashed a big smile and then gave her a wink, which seemed to give her sister the reassurance she needed, because she squeezed her hand back and returned her smile with a megawatt smile of her own. The rest of the way to school, Mimi played the knock-knock game with Chrissy to make sure her mood remained happy and cheerful. And before they knew it, they were at school, and she was kissing her sister goodbye as they went to their separate classes. Just before turning away and heading toward the upper floors, she noticed that several children had come to greet Chrissy. Noticing that two of the children were boys, she wondered if either of these little boys was the boyfriend her sister had claimed as her own. Well, at least he has good taste, she said to herself with a chuckle, as she headed up the stairs to her homeroom class. Her mind returned to the conversation she and her sister had on the way to school, and her heart skipped a beat. She didn't want her sister to know that she had felt the same fear, and had in fact felt the same fear every day since they came to live with Aunt Nisi. She always felt like they were on the verge of being kicked out, and she almost hated her brother for acting up, convinced that his continued bad behavior would get them kicked out. Why didn't he see that they needed Aunt Nisi to keep them so that child services wouldn't try to separate them? When she came home yesterday and found out he had been arrested, she was sure they were going to be thrown out. When they were in church last night, she prayed to God that Aunt Nisi would give them another chance and not throw them out. She also prayed to God that he would make her brother behave. But when she saw how happy Aunt Nisi was when the coach asked her out on a date, she started feeling better. If Mr. Banyan can make Aunt Nisi happy, then she wouldn't think about them, and especially Jay. The next couple of days went by without any major mishaps, and for that, Denise was grateful. Before she knew it, Saturday was there, and she was preparing for her date with Will. Matt and the twins were watching a movie in the basement. Mimi and Chrissy were playing a board game in the dining room, and Jay was in his room, as usual, doing whatever it was that he does in his room. While sitting at her vanity applying her makeup, her mind began to replay the conversation she'd had with Angie the night before. I can't believe I am really going through with this. Oh my good gracious, girl. We've been going over this again and again and again. There is absolutely no reason on God's green earth why you should not be going on this date. And if you say one more negative thing about it, I am going to get in my car and come over there just to kick you in the shin. Well, there is certainly no need for violence, she said laughingly. Nisi, you have got to stop thinking negative about this. You of all people know that if you keep thinking it, you will speak it. And if you speak it, it has been released into the atmosphere. The devil does not need any more ammunition to use against you. And if you give him your doubts, he will expand them and cause this night to become a disaster. Go out and have a great time. But what if he decides he doesn't like me as much as he thought he did after we go out? What if he decides? What if you decide that you don't like him? Yeah. I know what you're saying. Do you really know what I'm saying, Nisi? You are a beautiful, intelligent, motivated, professional woman, and any man in his right mind would be glad to get a chance to have a friendship with you, let alone a relationship. So stop selling yourself short. But what about the kids? What about them? They've never seen me with any man but their father. Do you think they will feel betrayed by me going out with Will? Girl, your kids love you, and they like the coach. And for the millionth time, you have been a good mother, and you have been faithful to God all these years. So no one can say you are disrespecting the memory of your late husband. Now stop looking for excuses and get a good night's sleep so you can be ready to have a good time on your date with that handsome man tomorrow night. Yes, ma'am. Love you, Angie. I love you too, girl. And you better call me when you get back home and tell me all about it. I will.